Welcome back to Talk of the Town. We have a very interesting discussion going on about Albany and the things that have been happening recently with Dean Skelos and Sheldon Silver. And our guest in studio is Carl Palladino, and one of his favorite subjects. Carl, we've been talking about the three men in the room, and the third man is Governor Cuomo. And my question is, do you think the governor is getting a little nervous?
Yes, I would expect that he has problems with his lower GI series right now. He's a man that I wouldn't say it's not greed that drives him, it's empowerment that drives him. He's a power-crazed person. And that power has been carried to unusual lengths on different issues. He has a good buddy here in Buffalo by the name of Lou Simonelli, and it just seems that Lou Simonelli gets all these state contracts without bidding. They think nothing of it. That's power craze. That's driven by this unfulfilled desire for the power to call the shots. I think Pripahara, the way he has been handling the Skelos and the Silver indictments, is gearing up to get them to roll, if he can force them to roll, on Cuomo as additional evidence on Cuomo, in addition to the Moreland Commission conspiracy, which obviously happened when Sheldon Silver saw that they were going after his law firm. He obviously made a phone call to somebody. We just don't know who it was. And that somebody called Cuomo and said, you got to get rid of this thing. And the next morning, he got rid of the Moreland Commission.
I think that was the beginning of everything, right?
Most people that watch Albany closely were amazed that he formed the Moreland Commission in the first place. And then he got bit by his own bite. You know?
Didn't he have to form that commission? He came into office promising that he was going to throw the bums out of Albany, right? Wasn't that what he told us?
And he promised transparency, and he promised a lot of things that he obviously forgot about real quick.
Mm-hmm. Well, and and then we've got these replacements coming in, and we're replacing Skelos with someone who has 27 or 29 years in the Senate. And then I think to myself, what's the difference? If you've been in Albany for 20-some years, you've obviously been swimming in the shark-infested water, making the deals so that you can stay there, right?
And their ideas are not fresh. Their conditioning to problems becomes weaker with time.
Yeah.
They start to take things for granted. They think they're impervious to prosecution. They think that they're untouchable, and they are poster children.
For years, they have been untouchable.
Well, they have been because of very weak prosecutors. We finally have a guy who's his own man. He knows what his job is, and he's going to do his job. And he's like a miracle from heaven. Thank God for Pripahara. I mean, I put him in the same boat as I do Pagula for coming to Buffalo. And after 25 years of worrying about what's going to happen to the Buffalo Bills and the Sabres, we've got a guy from the area who made it good and has dedicated the rest of his life and his career and his family fortune to doing the right thing for the people. And that's what Pripahara is in my book. I mean, he's a wonder. He's doing the right thing, and he's never going to be able to look back and say, I should have done that, or I should have done that. And you ask yourself then, what about Hochul? What about his conflict? I mean, how can you possibly serve as a U.S. attorney when your wife is serving as lieutenant governor? How can you watch the state government and its operations and corruption in state government when your wife is the lieutenant governor?
I think in New York State, conflict of interest has never been an issue for politicians.
Well, about time it became an issue.
And maybe we can get there, right? Maybe someday. And I think that if we can have some kind of limit on terms, right?
Term limits is part of the answer. And the quicker they do it, the better. Obviously, they want to insulate themselves, the current legislators. We send people with all our heart and our souls, to Albany to do the right thing. When they get there, something happens to them. They start drinking this Kool-Aid, and all of a sudden they're somebody else. And they think that they could keep these two identities and come home and tell us all the good stuff that they've done. But really, all they're bringing us is the breadcrumbs that they get from the leadership that really has controlled our destiny. That leadership's sitting in a dark room someplace, okay, conspiring on how they're going to take care of this and take care of that.
How they're going to divide up the pie.
Our government was meant to be transparent. It was meant to be open. And that hopefully we're going to return to that at some point in the future. But we're going to lose a lot of local elected officials in doing it because they just have to go. They're just not doing their job.
And I've often, felt that good men and women don't want to go into politics, don't want to go to Albany because, good men and women, how can they in good conscience fall in line behind someone like Scallows and Silver?
Well, we've got a few good people there. I mean, you look at a guy like David DiPietro, he's just one little assemblyman. Same with Mickey Kearns, he's on the Democratic side. He just refused to follow Silver, and he was the rogue Democrat. So he gets an office in the basement, he gets a parking space 3 miles down the road, but he kept his values and his substance. And the same with Pietro and Bill Nojay from Rochester. We've got some good people. Term limits is so necessary, and hopefully we will convict enough of them that we'll be able to get to term limits at some point in the future.
Well, I have talked to people who are in office, and there is one disturbing trend or rule, if you will, and that is, the best of intentions going into office really get thrown aside when you get in there, because what they do, and this is a general rule that I don't care whether you're in local, state, or federal office, they kind of take you by the scruff of the neck and they pull you aside and they say, okay, here's the way it works. You do what you're told, you say what we tell you to say, and if you behave yourself, then we'll throw you a bone every once in a while, and we'll let you get something
and how
through
corrupt
for your
is that?
people.
That's absolute corruption. That's what they promise us, that they're not going to do that when they go there.
But that's absolutely
they're not going to
the rule.
vote for that leadership. The same people that watched Scallows take 8 senators from Long Island and vote for the SAFE Act, okay? The same people that griped and said, "Oh, I'm anti-SAFE Act. I'm the upstaters, the guys from Western New York." Those same people voted for Scallows to be their leader the next 2 years. Okay, same people. So I mean, it's all this smoke and mirrors. It's say this but do this, and it's the same old game.
If you don't behave yourself, we're going to sit you in that basement corner, and nobody will ever hear from you again. And basically, that's the rule.
And the smart ones, they get up and they speak up. I mean, the press will start to eventually produce your writings and your.
Well, the press sometimes, and I've said this many, many times. I've been a member of the press for my entire adult life, and sometimes the press just doesn't tell the story. Yeah. And it's unfortunate that sometimes the press is not. Shall we say, unbiased. They follow the company line all too often, and it's a shame because they just don't tell the truth enough.
Well, you have to put some credence in that. Otherwise, why are the same people being elected over and over and over again with the same results? And here in upstate New York,
well, they don't want to get them mad because at election time, these guys pay them big bucks to advertise on their outlets,
which is a whole
and that's the game that's we all know is.
If you look at the statistics, how many incumbents tend to be reelected as opposed to challengers?
The new guy.
And it's the vast majority. It's like 80–90% of the incumbents that are reelected if they want to be.
And how will things change if we're not
press just
voting them
doesn't
out?
do their job. They don't do it.
Well, going forward, what do you foresee happening, with these charges being filed, and as this plays out, where do you think it's going to go?
I don't know. It's a hazy future right now, and will they change? Will they actually pass legislation that makes them that exposes more? Will they actually restructure the pecking order and stop this nonsense of appointing forever? I mean, it's not only the term limits; it's the term limit on the appointments to office. I mean, for Sheldon Silver to serve as since 1995, I think it was, almost 20 years as the Speaker of the Assembly. That's ridiculous. That should change. I mean, it maybe serve two-year terms and that's it. You know, pass it on to somebody else so we can, you know, and keep an honest government. Too much power vested in one person breeds corruption.
But then, you know, the flip side, you'll hear people say that if we put term limits on, we're not there long enough to do anything.
We're losing experience.
We're not there enough to make a difference. We need more time.
It's all BS.
Yeah.
When the founding fathers created this country, they were all, you know, they were temporary. I mean, they would come in and they would serve temporarily and then they would move on. They would go back to their jobs.
Yeah.
And nobody stayed longer than a few terms because it just, you know, being a politician was not considered to be a real profession. It was just a volunteer, if you will. You know, we're going to help out and then we're going to go back to our real jobs.
Yeah.
And that somehow got convoluted because it was power. And the people who wanted power, which translates to the greedy people, they became professional politicians. And that's dangerous.
I also think it's really important that we recognize this is both sides of the aisle. You know, we become
it's not
devoted to
one side
I'm
or
a
the other.
Republican, I'm a Democrat.
No, the cesspool involves all of them.
Just
Yeah,
one
especially in this
big-
state. I mean, it's just
They're all
there's,
it's
you
all the
cannot say
same-
one side or the other.
Yeah, it's all the same horrible end game.
Well, keep our fingers crossed,
Well,
and
it seems
hopefully
to
Preet
go-
Bharara will keep indicting more and more of them, and we'll deal with them that way. Obviously, the electorate doesn't get a fair shake. We have to use the courts, and if that's what's necessary, hopefully we'll get at it.
Well, it seems to be a crack in the dam, and we'll see where this goes. It's going to be very interesting to follow the coming events.
The coming events, the circus.
We'll see.
The circus in Albany.
Yeah, it could be. This is uncharted territory.
Yeah.
You know, this hasn't happened in our state's history. So, stay tuned.
Things could be looking
And hopefully, Carl, we'll have you back to do a little play-by-play analysis in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah.
up. Thanks for coming
Okay,
out.
thanks so much for watching Talk of the Town. Thanks for watching WBBZ. We'll catch you next time.